Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourselves for the arrival of one of the most influential, dynamic, and iconic figures in the history of voice acting, animation, and direction. A true legend whose contributions have forever changed the landscape of entertainment. With an astonishing 303 acting credits, including 288 in animation, Charlie Adler is a force of nature whose voice has been a constant companion to generations of audiences. From the instant hilarity of Buster Bunny in Tiny Toon Adventures to the chaos of Cow, Chicken, and the Red Guy in Cow and Chicken, Adler has inhabited some of the most unforgettable characters in animation history. Now, whether he's embodying the sinister Starscream in Transformers or giving life to characters across franchises like Rocko's Modern Life, Real Monsters, and countless others, his voice and talent are limitless. Adler's ability to create worlds with just his voice has earned him a place in the voice acting legend, and cemented by being named by Animation Magazine as one of the top 13 all-time voice artists, and honored with the 2022 Lifetime Achievement Award from the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences. Adler's impact on the world of animation and voice artistry is monumental. His creativity, energy, and love for his craft have helped him collect 8 prestigious nominations and 3 major wins, further cementing his legendary status. Whether you've heard him on television and films, on radio, or even as a guiding force behind some of the biggest names in animation, Charlie's work is synonymous with excellence, innovation, and timeless artistry. He's the voice director behind hit shows like Blaze and the Monster Machines, The Wild Thornberrys, Clifford the Big Red Dog, Harley Quinn, and the highly anticipated Unicorn Academy. But from Nickelodeon's Rugrats reboot, which earned him his first Emmy, to his groundbreaking direction on Kung Fu Panda, The Paws of Destiny, and Madagascar, A Little Wild, his work spans iconic franchises, G.I. Joe, The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, and even Disney classics. He's even lent his voice direction to legends like Eartha Kitt and Jerry Lewis and more. From his first voice in 1985 in Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer as Pop Pop, to the 2024 Hit Pig as Super Rooster, he isn't just a voice actor or director, he's a visionary. However, his career doesn't stop at animation. From the stage where he starred in Broadway's Torch Song Trilogy to live-action television roles and even a little stint in film, to now teaching master classes, which are seemingly always sold out, he's inspiring the future generation of voice artists. Charlie's talents have touched almost every medium of entertainment. Yet despite the countless accolades and high-profile projects, he remains grounded, never forgetting his early days waiting tables, baking bread, or working as a janitor. His humility and love for his craft shines through every performance, every direction, and every lesson he shares. Please join me in welcoming a true legend in every sense of the word, the one, the only, Charlie Adler. Charlie, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. First of all, that might be the sweetest, kindest, most generous introduction I've ever received. I was looking over my shoulder to see if I was dead or if somebody else was going to come into the room. I was waiting for somebody really terrific to come in. And so that was incredibly generous. Thank you. And I don't even know where to begin with that. I think I just have to die now.
Get another nomination or award if you do that.
Oh, God. That's right. You're going to drop dead. Then they go, oh, he was so great. Yeah.
We'll get you a star now.
Yeah.
I want to dive into this with you. Growing up, it's been said that you were a self-described TV junkie. Now, at that time, growing up, shows like Rocky and Bullwinkle were on, the Beverly Hillbillies, and even the Three Stooges. Did these shows help your sense of humor and influence when you eventually got into voice acting?
I think everything influenced my formation, getting into voice acting. I was a weird kid on the outside. I was a very little, tiny little kid, freckle-faced, auburn hair. I had a wildly abusive father who traveled, thank Christ. I retreated a lot into television. I probably was weirdly socially awkward for a time. And then so during that weirdly awkward time, TV, and by the way, then when I was growing up, I was born in 1956, I'll be 68 in a week. So I'm going to talk up until from like maybe we had one television. It was a black and white. We didn't even have a color television. We didn't have a lot of money. We had a black and white TV. So I saw Rocky and Bullwinkle black and white. I saw the Beverly Hillbillies black and white. I saw all the shows that formed me, and it was always the eccentric performances that I was completely gravitated to, that I found funny. There was a cartoon called Crazy Cat. I was not that obsessed with animation at all, but the Three Stooges, I think Curly to this day is the funniest character. There was something so brazen and innocent. I have this obsession with innocence, because innocence to me, in the face of horrible behavior, probably i.e. my own childhood, always cracked me up, because it was the innocence that would take down the sons of bitches at their kneecaps. And so I found that very empowering. I also found that if I imitated, this is a strange thing. I told this the other night at dinner to some friends. This was a new awareness that I had. In order to keep my father at bay, which was some task, I would imitate him. And the first time I imitated him, what came out, even to me, sounded like him, even when I was a little kid. And I saw him seriously, genuinely. It was as if I socked him in his nuts. And my mother froze and my sister froze, and the two women in my life started to laugh. And my father had no choice but to back down. And I thought, there was power in that. So for me, it was a weapon. It was a great tool to keep me from harm. And at the same time, I probably was just a wildly eccentric kid, in that the things that I laughed at were probably obtuse to most people and not mainstream. And it got me through a lot of very difficult and challenging times, that I could laugh at some things, or I could turn them into things that would not cause me pain, but would give me a great sense of pleasure. So, yes, Rocky and Bullwinkle, Fractured Fairy Tales, genius, absolute genius. Edward Everett Horton Jr. I played opposite Imogene Coca when I was 19. Now, she was on television a lot, always, ever, forever. I responded to her. My mother told me this when I got my job playing with her, that the first time that my mother was aware of how I felt about Coca, probably a full decade before I worked with her. I flew off the couch and almost nose to nose to the television. I recognized her, and I didn't know why. There was something about her. And we felt that way. She and I felt that way when we met and when we worked together. And she would say, we went out, I was of drinking age. I was 19. And we went out one night, and it was very, very early on into the run. And she said to me, "Darling, do you believe in reincarnation?" I said, "I do." She said, "I swear you're my twin brother. We were twins in a former life." That's how connected we were until she died. So I met her then. She was 67 and I was 19, and she died at 93, almost 93. So for those 28 years, whatever, 26 years that was, don't judge me on my math, please, people. There was that deep connection. Weirdly, she had done Once Upon a Mattress with Edward Everett Horton Jr. and would tell me stories about him. There were all these strange little, threads. And then I worked with June Foray for years on Smurfs. It's weird where life takes you. You just have no idea where life is going to lead you. Yes, TV, I was a TV junkie, and yes, it helped form me. And yes, as did 30s and 40s screwball comedies. So much character work was done where I found myself imitating those people and dancing with them. and I still use them. I still rely on them to inspire me when I'm lost.
I got to say, I find it incredibly hard to believe that you were this skinny, auburn hair, freckled face guy. I mean, when did you start going to the gym, I guess? But
I
uh,
started going to the gym when I was, I'll tell you exactly, when I was 19 and I moved to Hell's Kitchen a year earlier. And it became very obvious to me that I had to do something. I had to do something about myself. And I was terrified of gyms, and I would skip gym class, and they just gave up on me. I had nothing to do with it. But when I got to this gym, something woke up in me, and I started to feel very whole. I started to walk differently, and I started to navigate space differently. Because in truth, the theater, and I came from that, I was doing 8 shows a week. You better be in shape if you're doing 8 shows a week. And if you are carrying a show, some of which I had to carry shows, there was no way to be allowed to be sick, to be less than, to not deliver. You never cheat an audience. If there's one person or 10,000, you never cheat an audience. And so part of that was me uh, fighting for myself and declaring myself. So I became a gym rat. I was a total addict, and I was taking yoga twice a day for years. I mean, that's nuts. And then I got cast in a show when I was 22 where I had to be shirtless, which was so thankfully I was in shape enough to not be embarrassed because I would have been. I would have been mortified as a kid to be shirtless. And I felt pretty goddamn good. And vanity is also, once you discover there's power in that. So my vanity also kicked in. So many things caused a great and ongoing reinvention. That's where I am now.
it's amazing when we look at your childhood briefly and we say, okay, it wasn't the best of households, but where you were able to imitate your father and find the power in that, to being the TV junkie for the escape, going to the gym, getting in the theater. And as you said, you really can't miss a day on theater. Your understudy comes in and maybe something else happens. So when we look at where you are today, and as you said, you still rely on some of these old classics to help out with the modern animation. Do you feel that the humor from, let's say Rocky, Bullwinkle, Flintstones, Three Stooges, even Hillbillies have changed the way that we look at the modern animation and the modern storytelling?
Boy, that's such a great question. Because I have very definite feelings, as you imagine I would, about everything. But, like for instance, Granny Clampett, played by the most beautiful, brilliant vaudevillian Irene Ryan, who was then rediscovered after Beverly Hillbillies. She'd done many, many movies. And then she did Pippin on Broadway. And she had the 11 o'clock number, which stopped the show. I feel that animation, like all things, has morphed into different things. I feel like the style, I got to go backwards for a second. I want to put a pin in that because it became apparent to me at some point in my career that the hallmark of my work was over the top, insane, crazy. And then I realized that wasn't my entirety, that there were cinematic things that I could apply. I just had to let people get used to the fact that I wasn't always going to be over the top. And so when I had the opportunity to play people that were not, wild and nuts and Warner Brothers and 1940s and all that crazy stuff, it was very comforting to me because I felt like that was another facet of me that I would be allowed to exorcise, not exercise, exorcise. And having said that, I made a terrible, stupid, asshole mistake, which my career has been peppered with, and my life. and I don't learn unless I really fuck up royally. So cheers to fucking up and surviving and prevailing and triumphing. That's where all that happens. Anyway, I'm sounding insane to myself. One of the stupidest things I did was say, not really stupid, it was based on screaming all day. I didn't want to do video games. I stopped doing them because all I was doing was screaming all day. They're on strike right now because of that. So for me, I was doing so many other things in animation that it would have knocked me out of the realm of doing them. Disappointing, but it just sort of stuck. So I've missed some really fun things as video games evolved into more cinematic and more interesting and more textured and more deep, the kind of acting that I love.
Right.
But animation has changed so drastically, but so has culture. Culture has changed so drastically. There's a smugness, there's a cockiness, there's an entitlement that has so changed culture that, art reflects culture. So the shows that I abhor, and I won't list them, but I do, there are many that I do, are so without humor, in my opinion, are so dull, are so flatlined, are so smug, are so self-important, self-aware. To me, the only things that are funny to me are no self-awareness. So people just behaving or behaving badly with no self-awareness. There is a self-awareness, not just in the storytelling, the writing, but the performances, which are influenced by the creator directors. And they bore the living tits off me, where I just sit there going, how is that even funny? I've given shows tries. I really have. I keep saying to myself, get over yourself, old fart, because I sound like my grandfather to me. So like I'll watch stuff and I'll go, no, it's just not me. It's just not, it doesn't reflect anything that I like or think is funny. I see creators casting themselves and their pals, and I was sadly involved with a show like that for a while. And it has changed. It has morphed, but it's not them, it's the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what am I going to do? Change the world? If I'm an activist, I try to, but sometimes you just can't. And if you think I'm going to tackle fucking cartoons to change the world, you're nuts.
So, you brought up a really interesting point here when we were talking about voicing video games and people all day, and it just kills the voices.
Yeah.
And it's so important to have these policies in place to help us. Otherwise, what ends up happening is your voice is wrecked and you can't work anymore.
Yes.
What are some of the exercises that you do to keep your voice in top shape?
I sing. I was just cooking. I cook dog food for my dogs. I do it every 3 months. They get mountains of food that goes in the freezer. The farmer's dog my ass. I make my own, and I've been doing it forever. And it's hours. And so even when I'm cooking for the dogs, I've got my playlist up and I'm singing my ass off, and I'm doing it knowing that if I don't stay in shape, if I lose that edge in terms of where my voice is produced, how it's produced, how it's supported, the gym supports that, walking supports that, everything goes to the greater good, which in my opinion is being at my highest functioning.
Mm-hmm.
And the day I lose that, forget it. So I feel and have felt since my first play that I'm in the Army in so many ways, in a very good way, in a very good constructive way. So warming up and warming down, singing exercises. When I got Cow and Chicken, this is how long ago it was 150 years ago. I had a little shop of horrors in my tape deck in my car, my little tape deck. And my thing was, and still is imitating singers. So there are different frequencies and different placements and all that. And as I pulled into Hanna-Barbera, as I was parking the car, I was just finishing Somewhere That's Green. Out. I walk in. I get handed characters on the top of my packet is Cow. 7-year old, 760, so whatever how old she was, 8 year old, 760 pound cow. The sweetest drawing you've ever seen in my life. I fell in love with her. Innocence, innocence. And thank you, Ellen Green. But that is where the beginning of Cow came from. Doesn't sound anything like Ellen Green. I never did sound anything like Ellen Green. But for me, it was doing at somebody. So that's where Cow was born. It was singing on the way into work. It would never occur to me. And I have a feeling I would have gone at somehow that character. I might have arrived at the same place. It was just luck that that song came on as I was going in and it was fresh in me.
You know, speaking of Cow and Chicken, and when we talk about that iconic voice for Cow, how do you do it? How do you keep the energy level and your enthusiasm when you're doing roles like this? Now, my real question on this is like for Cow, Chicken, and the Red Guy, you're in the booth with three distinct characters and you have to bring them to life. It's just you. You're looking around, there's no one for you to play off of. So how do you keep that level of energy and enthusiasm when you're just playing off yourself?
Well, there are other people in the room, and there have been Ma, Dad, Candy Milo, D. Bradley Baker, Howard Morris. Help me, Jesus! He's going to kill me. I love this man. He's the father on The Simpsons. He's Homer, Dan Castellaneta, or Michael Dorn with I Am Weasel. But when I'm talking to myself, where there's scenes or worse scenes, many scenes written where I'm just interacting with myself. I just love the characters so much that it doesn't. I don't know that I can give you. When someone say to me in interviews, "What's your process?" I eat and I shit. That's my process. So I have no idea. I can't give you anything that's useful or intelligent about how I do what I do. I just do it. I don't ask my plumber how he does it. I don't ask my surgeon how he does that. This is what we all do, and I'm a lucky fucker. This is what I do. But in terms of me separating them, they're distinctly different people. I just think I have a very tight gearbox. And so over time, that muscle has been developed and developed and developed. I don't know that I could have done that in my 20s because I'm not sure I knew where those gear shifts lived. I wasn't sure where those muscles lived, but over time I figured them out pretty quick. And so by the time they were needed, they were there and they were developed. And so that's the best I can tell you. They're distinctly different people to me, and they have very different centers of gravity. I know where they live inside me, and I think you have to be in love with the people you play, even if they're terrible. I have been so lucky. I have been absolutely in love with the people that I play. It's a terrible thing if you judge your characters. If you go, I don't like the way. No, I love that person because he's an ugly mirror to that person who really exists. I love that cruelty in him. People need to see that. I love that vile. Let people see that. Shine some light on it. So I think that's a great privilege. Does that answer your question?
No, it does for sure. And I guess the follow-up question I would have for you is that when you're in that booth and you're reading, Cow and Chicken as an example, are you just reading Cow and recording it? Are you playing off of, you're reading Cow and then switching right into the mode of Chicken?
Yes. I go line to line to line. Whoever it is, we don't stop. I don't do one character through the show and then go back and do it. No, I have conversations with myself. And, this is so. The energy that I have comes from, as I told you, just hopefully staying physically in shape. But there's something else, and that is add to that loving the character. But, when there's great writing, when you have great writing, it gives you energy. When you have shitty writing, you have to provide the energy. You have to compensate for it, but you still better give 10,012%. But I got to tell you this one day, D. Bradley Baker, who's just a genius and an angel human being, plays my dad. And we were sitting next to each other, and we were at a different studio. There was a curved padded wall. I called it my padded cell that I would literally go I would just lean on when I got tired. And we had the scripts. We never rehearsed. And so we would just go cold. We would just do it. And so I'm looking at the script and I see that the lines are kind of wavy. And I think, oh God, I'm fucking having a stroke. And I kind of lean on the wall and I say, D. He goes, what? I said, D, look at my script. The lines are curving. They're going up. D looks, he says, oh yeah, it's the printer. I thought, oh, thank God. But for those minutes that I saw these wavy lines, I'm thinking I'm going to take the old boy away. And I wasn't so old then.
So I love a couple things that you've said here. One is that, that there is no real process to it. And you have to fall in love with these characters. So let me ask you this then. Have you ever gotten a script or a character breakdown where you've just had to force yourself to fall in love with the character that's in front of you?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
when you force yourself to fall in love, how do you break them down and develop a voice that you can fall in love with?
I slap the shit out of myself. I say things like, get over yourself. Stop judging it. Somebody wrote this. Act like you got some sense. What's the story about? And then I take a different look at it. On surface, sometimes my immediate knee jerk is, oh, look, a wizard, a magical wizard who's trying to steal all the magical stones from the sweet little mushroom people. I haven't seen that before. I do that.
Mhm.
And then I got to pull my head out of my ass and say, shut up. Somebody wrote this. This means something to some people. Give it its due. And then when I get over that reaction, then I just instantly fall in love, because here's what I really feel, Chris. I love acting. I love acting so much. It is my home. It's been my refuge. And so once I jump into something, if it's the phone book, it's going to get everything.
Right.
And so it's a weird way to answer that, but there's not I have conscious thoughts about it, but then the bottom line is what I go to is I just love to act. And sometimes it's more rewarding to make something work that on surface seems not workable.
Mhm.
That's always exciting to me.
So when we look at these characters and you fall in love with them and you pull your head out of your ass and you're moving forward with the passion behind it, is there a character voice or a voice in your head that's just for you, that you've never put out there for a character, something that, to get yourself into that moment if you need it, where it's just, here's Charlie's voice that you're never going to voice to a character?
Oh, Lord have mercy. Well, God, you ask really good questions. I had done a one-man show which I wrote, which had 11 characters in it. It was called There Used to Be Fireflies. And it took place in a neighborhood that was being torn down. This was 28 years ago, the first incarnation of it. And there were a couple of characters that, again, I just love so dearly. They're so personal to me. But for instance, there is an African-American donut shop owner, donut man, who his monologue is unrequited love. He's been in love with this woman he's seen out his window for as long as he's been in the neighborhood. And he's never had the courage to say, and he's closing the store. This is his last day. His whole monologue is saying goodbye to somebody he's never met. And I love him. I love him. Well, I would never do that character because there are African-American geniuses out there who should be playing those characters and not me. So that's one. There is a transsexual, there is a man who is halfway through transitioning to a woman named Angel, who I am so in love with, I can't breathe. And whenever I get to do her, I'm in some sort of bliss. But she's not somebody that I feel I could do legitimately, and I wouldn't want to short short her. She deserves her story. But there are a couple of people that I have done that I've used. Yes. So I hold in reserve a few of those people, because they're too precious to me, and it would be inappropriate outside of that storytelling. But I've used essences of some of the other characters for sure, not them completely, but pieces of them. Yeah. What a
So
great question.
when we talk about these characters and the ones that are in reserve there from 1985 until now, what's been your most favorite character, favorite voice over the years?
Cow. In
So
love.
why did you fall in love with Cal?
I think she is the sweetest, the most gentle, the most loving, the most sincere. I think she is the most of every good quality in so many things. She's also histrionic. She's also hysterical. She's also heroic. She's also as so guileless that in the face of the red guy, she just cracks me up. David Feast, who created Cow and Chicken, who's just this brilliant man. I became a minister so I could do his wedding at my house, the second wedding.
Wow.
And so that's how close we are. He to this minute still cracks me up because he at sessions I would see him act out the storyboard. So if I ever looked up, which was a mistake, which I tell when I teach, I say, never look up when you're acting. Never stay with your script. All your energy comes from the privacy of that. Do not look up. I looked up one day, and there was David, and I was doing the red guy, and he was literally going like this, and I went, and he was so invested. So he wrote and drew from whatever his mania, what his imagination came from, but he was so in love with those characters as well. And so we did an episode where I think I think this is the right one. I might be completely wrong. It's been a long time. Supermodel Cow, and I think she ends up going with the red guy who enslaves her in a milk bar where she sings a song like 10 cents a dance and big boy you, and then he saves her and all this cow cow cow, oh big boy you, and the red guy's like sing sing, and there's one shot where she's it's like a back of Cow and she's in a strapless gown, and David just had one strap fall, and I did not know why that lasted with me. That was one of the funniest friggin' genius ideas, having nothing to do with me, my work, my performance. That was so David. And she was so perfect for any situation. I'm insane for her. I talk to my dogs as her.
So I want to go back for a second, just because you brought up your dogs and you said that you make your own, you have a playlist. What's the one of the top five songs that is on
Ah!
every playlist for you?
Well, I'm so schizophrenic. It's so dictated by. Well, I'll tell you who my favorite artists are. Joni Mitchell is it. Billie Holiday is it. Laura Nyro is it. Janice Ian is it. Charles Aznavour is it. Tony Bennett is it. It just depends on the day. There are Broadway shows from the 60s and 70s that I saw growing up as a kid that have stuck with me. I'm so eclectic that I couldn't even give you top five, but I will tell you, if I were on a desert island and I could only bring one song with me and one recording of one song, it would be Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now, not the original, but when she had smoke and she understood what she had written. And there's those lyrics absolutely wreck me, because now I get it. I get it. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Clouds, Bosa. Now it makes sense to me. And so there's something about that, the orchestra, the smoke in her voice, her life that just wrecks me. And there's something inspirational and beautiful about it too. It's very poetic. Who's better than Joni Mitchell? I mean, I have Eartha Kitt on my goddamn playlist for a couple of songs. I mean, I just have these weird ass people.
So when we look at these inspirations and these influential people, and we look at from where you started to where you are now, and even going back and hearing your playlists, what major changes have surprised you in the industry the most?
Indifference, arrogance, rudeness, self-importance, fear, lack of taking chances, money, greed. The list goes on. A lack of artistic vision, pandering to an audience, second guessing an audience. Those changes are so profound, but it's culture. It is, I would say this about everyone. There's a lack of civility. There is a disrespect for other people. There is a greed that is so blinding to me. I got to tell you something. I have had no money in my life. I have had zero. I grew up with zero. I spent my early years in New York friggin' starving. I couldn't pay my heat. I couldn't pay my utilities. I had an all electric apartment. Little did I know when I signed a lease in the dead of winter. I have been broke, and then I've had okay, and then I've had spectacular money, then I've had zero money, then I've had spectacular, then I've had zero. My life looks like a bad EKG. And that to me is a very good thing. And so, because of it, I have a great contempt for entitlement. It drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. And I think I see that in so many things, and I see such a discounting of other people and other contributions of people. You know, all art, not all art. Let me take that away. Animation is a collaborative piece. So there's a lot of people now who have gotten so friggin' heavy-handed you could go crazy. And I saw it when I was doing Tiny Toons. I couldn't stand it because Spielberg was Buddha and people were scurrying around. They lost their manners, all to touch Buddha's robe, all to get the favor of Buddha. He didn't know what was going on. How could he? He's a busy man. But the people around him, from corporate all the way down, lost their manners. And that drove me crazy. Because they were so hungry. There was a hunger. And that was the first time I really saw in my entire career it was so obvious you couldn't look away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I really saw it and I went, whoa, no way. No, definite way.
So with all of that going on, and we talk about that hunger and the ego and the fear, and I love that you said fear. Has there been a particular philosophy or mindset that's just been guiding you outside of, hey, someone wrote that, pull my head out of my butt over here? Has there any been like you're on set and you see this happening and you just, what's that philosophy or mindset that you just kind of switch over to?
Boy, it's an ongoing evolution of thinking, of understanding things. Some of it's a function of age. Some of it is proactively seeking a different way of navigating and different tools as I go along. And some of it is a willingness to see things as they are and a decision to either live with them, actively navigate around them, or wipe my ass with them. And I don't see any other way when I'm faced with real aggression, with some real awful behavior, my instinctive knee jerk is to come out swinging. And that goes back to being a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I now have some stopgaps before I come out swinging. so I don't just go mellowed over the years, which shocks me. Yeah, whatever, knock yourself out. I mean, that's kind of where I am with a lot of it. Knock yourself out. Have a good time. Uh-huh. Yeah, all right, fine. Right. Mm-hmm. Yes, this is the most important thing in the world. You just stick to that. Where I just don't even want to engage. That's become a lot of it. So philosophically, and then I think for the most part, I'm a pure atheist, except I love and embrace and put into practice elements of Buddhism, which I think is the most beautiful and poetic of all philosophies, philosophically. So there are moments I found myself with people the other day going about something or somebody, and then I stopped and I said, "Nice little Buddhist, huh?" And it cracked myself up. Just great little Buddhist work, weren't you? So, I'm foolish and imperfect most of the time.
So while I have you on this train here, I want to fast forward into time. You're teaching classes as well, but your master classes are seemingly always sold out, and there's even a constant wait list, in my opinion. Do you ever feel like a rock star with fans waiting in line for tickets?
No, I feel remarkably lucky, and I feel deeply saddened when somebody shows up and says, "I've been trying to get here for 2 years." And then honored. I don't know how to navigate that. Rock star, schmuck star. I mean, this is, I have never gotten 1 inch in my life without three elements, and I'll save the most important for last. The first two are equal, in my opinion. Teachers. I've had the most breathtaking teachers who saved me growing up, who said, "Look, I'm still in touch with my junior high school art teacher, who is only 10 years older than me, and we're very much in touch." Who would say, look over there, grab you by the collar, set you straight. People who have mentored me, who fall into the teacher category, who inspired me. Imogen Coca gave me, I'll say this till I'm dead. She gave me my eyes. She showed me by example how to behave. She showed me by loving example how to navigate the world, how to navigate the business, how to accept the eccentricity that which we are and am and most artists are. And then the third ingredient to me is luck. Luck. I would be nowhere without luck. It's access and luck. For every one of me, there are 10 million people who are gifted, remarkable in every way, who do not have access and who have zero luck. It's opportunity. It's being in the right place at the right time. It's different elements, and I lived 18 miles north of New York City growing up. I used to hitch to get into the city. I would second act plays, which means you didn't pay. You would wait for the curtain to go up for the second act, and you'd rush in with a program you found on the street and just wait until the lights went out and go sit in an empty seat and hope that person wasn't in the bathroom. It's called second acting. So I saw a ton of things growing up. Luck, opportunity. Somebody knows somebody else. Somebody says, "Hey, I have an idea. Hey, I have an idea. Why don't you try that? Why don't you go there?" I was near the city. I was near the theater. I was near opportunity. I had amazing teachers who I went to a summer program where the son of my teacher who died 5 years ago, Flo, who died at 95, her son was just here from Germany with his 2 kids. And talking about his mother, and the summer program where I met her and ended up at their house all the time, which is how he and I bonded growing up. And the fact that every Wednesday we would take a bus from Suffern, New York into Manhattan, and for 4 summers, for 8 weeks, I saw 8 different shows. Wow. And this woman, so I saw 32 shows in a year, in a summer, right? No, I did the math wrong. 32 over 4 years. of the greatest material. And then Flo would write letters and people would come and talk to us in between their shows. Ken Howard, who I became friends with years later, his mother-in-law, Ann Landers, found me when I was touring in Chicago, invited me into her life. And Ken Howard was her son-in-law. And a wonderful man who came onto our bus and talked to us on his between shows. Lynn Redgrave, who I ended up directing and becoming friends with how many decades later, sat on the apron of the stage with her lunch in her lunchbox, knowing she had another show to do, not napping, and decided she had to talk to students.
Jeez.
That's luck. Teachers, luck, mentors. So access. So going back to your question, I don't take 1 second for granted that people want to give a shit about learning from me. Of anything that I've done and that I do ever, teaching is the most important to me now. That's where I feel I have the most to express, the most to hear, the most to pass on. I had a near-death experience last year, and I don't take that for granted at all, although I felt that way beforehand. But now it's like I feel driven. I mean, I feel really driven.
Now, when we talk about access, where can people learn more about you? Where can we find you on social media? What's your website?
But this is how weird life is. 3 weeks ago, I decided I wanted to be on social media.
Mm-hmm.
I just decided, you know why? Because the business is changing, and I feel that relevance is slipping away. And I think I'm not ready to retire. Hardly. And I've decided I'm making these ridiculous TikToks every day. So I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter. Anyway, but I think my website is official Charlie Adler.
And Charlie, what's something that makes you smile?
Dogs, my friends, laughing. I paint. I've been painting again like a maniac. I think I cranked out 10 paintings this last 3 months. I can't stop painting. That thrills me because I wanted to be an artist. And I was a nude model at Art Students League when I couldn't afford classes. So I would just strip and they would draw, and then I would put a robe on and I would draw, and then I'd strip and they would draw, and then I'd put a robe on and then I'd draw. So I mean, I'm colorblind, so I never thought I could paint. But so much makes me happy. Getting up makes me happy. Making dog food makes me happy.
Oh, I love that. And earlier we were cheersing with your coffee. What do you have in your coffee cup, sir?
Just coffee and cream. I have my coffee is coffee, half and half, and a teaspoon of coconut sugar, which has very little glycemic impact.
And Charlie, that was the last question I had for you today on Coffee with Chris and Sir. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Oh my gosh. Everyone out there, Google Charlie Adler. You won't be disappointed. Everyone out there, remember to smile, to inspire, and have a fantastic day. Again, thank you so much, Charlie.
Chris, thank you. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Really, thank you very much.